Thanks for staying with us. Let's get into the conversation now, and I think it will be good for us to begin in Parliament. Let's start with you. Your colleague, Ras Mubarak, decided to ride to Parliament yesterday, and he wants to get a number of you to join him. So my question is, did you join today? Did you come here on a bicycle?
Well, first of all, let me say good morning to our viewers, and thank you very much for having me here. And also apologize for my hoarse voice this morning. I'm recuperating. And send out my heartfelt condolences to the people of Taha in my constituency who lost one of our very important chiefs 2 days ago. He went to his ancestors, and may the Almighty Allah have mercy on the chief of Taha and give the people of Taha the serenity of mind that is required to accept the loss. And to my very good friend, I wish him speedy recovery. The last time I was on this set, I was with Honorable George Anda, who was involved in an accident last weekend. I wish him a very, very speedy recovery, and I'm sure we all do. We need him back alive and strong, and we pray the good God will touch him with his healing hands. Now to Ras Mubarak.
Now to, did you come here on a bicycle?
I don't remember him, and I didn't see anywhere when I followed the news reports where he urged colleague members to join him. What I do know is that it was a symbol of protest, like he himself indicated, and I think it is important that he is commended for, you know, using that vehicle to draw attention to the hardships that many, many people are faced with today. I mean, everything in terms of cost is on the rise in this country. Talk about fuel, talk about rent, talk about food prices, talk about...
We'll measure it with the pure water. There's an increment in there.
Even pure water, even the breweries are increasing their prices. So it becomes difficult for people to even drink away their troubles. And clearly, even in that Nido challenge, what was clear is that the prices are going up. I mean, the prices may have varied from, you know, places I mean, from markets. But the obvious thing is that if you went to even where Nido is still sold at a lesser cost compared to what others, you know, projected, if you ask the sellers how much they sold it a week or 2 weeks ago, you are going to realize that it has increased. And so everything in terms of cost is on the rise in this country. And the average Ghanaian is struggling, you know, to squeeze water out of stone, to still keep body and soul together. And so Ras Mubarak's decision to ride to Parliament was not necessarily to reflect his own condition, as many have, you know, misinterpreted, but to largely portray what the ordinary Ghanaians are going through and to direct attention of the media to the suffering of the masses. That is what representatives are supposed to do. You do not represent people and project your lifestyle on them. You project their lifestyle. And so when you are a representative and your constituents begin to tell you how the economic conditions are harsh, it does not matter even if your economic circumstances are better than theirs. Okay. You are supposed to reflect what they are going through, and that is why they have chosen you to represent them. So I want people to get that and understand.
Wouldn't it be good if some of you joined?
It would be.
Because you hold the same sentiment, right?
It would be, but we don't need the numbers in this case to highlight the point that he sought to highlight. He did it beautifully by himself, and I just hope that the discussions will, you know, highlight what he sought to highlight and demand that our government does better, you know, to improve conditions of lives, because that is exactly what they campaigned on.
Okay.
They promised to make life better. They promised to, in some cases, even reduce the cost of certain things for the average Ghanaian to live a comfortable life. So if a minority member of parliament highlights the point that what was promised is not being delivered, and that people are rather confronted with these harsh economic decisions. And some of them, mind you, are as a result of direct government policy. For example, if you talk to the telecom industry, where now we have to pay more for data and voice, it is simply because government has decided to, you know, I don't know, to tweak with the VAT regime that we have in a way that it has resulted in increase in the cost of the, you know, telecom providers, and they have decided to transfer that cost to the consumer. So in some cases, it is as a direct result of government policy, and that is what has to be drummed home.
We will link this beautifully with some commentary yesterday at a program, but I want to ask you, Mr. Hiagba, things are hard, right? Here's one member of parliament who chooses to get all of us on board the difficulties in the country today. What do you say about what Ras Mubarak is doing?
Yeah, Mamavi, good morning to you. It's been a while since I've been in your studios. I want to say good morning to your viewers and to all my party leadership, our president, and to all Ghanaians. On the question that things are hard, things have always been hard in life.
It's harder now, right?
No, life has always been that way. That's why tomorrow you rise and come here again, hoping that the next day following tomorrow you'll make things better for yourself. That's how life is. So it's
we're talking about the economy.
Economy is life. Economy is life. You have your personal economy. Okay, that's why you come here. And we have a national economy. That's why we're fighting to make sure things get better. So let's understand that things have always been hard, and we fight and look forward to a better future.
So what did the government's campaign on, you know, to make things better? When you said you wanted to come and make things better?
Well, things are better now. Things are better now in economic terms than it was when we picked up this economy. Now, we can make the argument that we want things to be better faster. That is a relative argument that we'll make, and it's a continual thing
thought, you know,
that
we want
do
to
with
feel
life.
it.
Well, of course. Mama, you know this, and I always like to come back to the individual. Okay, how you like to transform your life. You like it today to be on top, you know, of the world, but it doesn't happen like that. In the realist world, it doesn't happen, and we're making the steps. We can take ourselves through the process that leads us there, and today we know we have moved forward. But the expectation is that.
So let's look at the things, you know,
can
the
we
real
talk about the
things.
bike?
Because yes, we're still talking about the bike.
Okay.
And we're talking about the fact that fuel prices have gone up and they keep going up.
And they've always gone up, haven't they?
But
the question is, you see.
But did you come for it to continue going up?
No. You see, when we make that statement without reference to where we're coming from, then it makes it difficult to explain. Things have always been that way, but it gets worse before it gets better. All of us know that in our real life, okay? So let's not trumpet that as though this is different. The way we run our individual life, that's how we run the economy. So that is a settled fact. Now, on the bike issue, Mamavi, I don't know if once when you were in secondary school, used to be secondary school before SHS, if you've been punished by having to weed before. Have you been in a situation like that?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I have in several times where oftentimes they'll have you weed at night, which makes agriculture, gives bad name to agriculture. It's something to be avoided, something not to be, you know, engaged in. That's what my honorable brother did yesterday.
How do you connect the two?
It's very easy and simple, in fact. Riding a bike is a positive thing. It's a health choice. In fact, we're living in an economy today that being conscious of your health, being preventive, okay, in terms of health, is a positive thing to do. So
But that's not the mission. That's not what he said.
Well, you pick,
ride
yes.
For different reasons.
Yes.
There are people who do it because they want to be engaged in some competition. It's actually a profession for some
That's
people.
why I gave you
some people do it for health reasons.
That's why I gave you the example.
But he's doing it as a protest.
That's why I'm giving you, well, of course, when they give you to weed, it's a punishment, but weeding or doing agriculture is not negative, is it? It's not. So he's taking a positive thing and giving it a negative connotation. That's where the problem is.
Oh, so that's where you're coming from.
Exactly. So if we are supposed, okay, to be preventive in terms of our health, people are getting obese and all those things that elsewhere, riding a bike is a lifestyle choice. It's a thing that people with the best forms of transportation, people with private airplanes and stuff, are buying bicycle because they know that at the core of it, they need that to be healthy to be able to use their vehicles. So for me, if you're using bicycle as demonstration of something wrong with our economy, with something wrong with our country, I find it unhelpful. So in fact, what if he goes to his constituency and he needs to tell them about healthy living? What is he going to use to demonstrate? Riding a V8? You understand? So that is what I see problematic about his choice of that. In fact, if I were him, I would use bicycle and even go to motorbike to demonstrate the excessive traffic in Ghana. That would be a more laudable example or demonstration of leadership than using that to demonstrate economic hardship. That's not the right way to do it. So for me, I see it as a desperate political attempt to grab some headlines, which it did, and we're talking about it. But at substance, there really was nothing there.
So you don't appreciate the issues that he raises? In fact, the issues that Mr. Suhuyini has gone over again?
Yeah, the issues may be sound, and I believe those are, you know, honestly his deep thought about what we should be doing or what should be happening. But he chose the wrong mode to use that as an example to demonstrate.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say,
I wanted this to be very brief.
It can
well, so the issue for me is not to be riding bicycles to demonstrate what is wrong with the economy.
So what should he be doing instead?
He should be engaged in a discussion to make things better. So right now we have a budget coming, okay? Engage the process.
Okay. No. Sorry. Sorry not to cut you.
So
please land.
Yes.
Real quick though.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that we have a situation where our leaders are taking things too lightly. If I were him, the energy exerted to ride bike to the place, I would exert that energy to come up with alternative solutions, ideas that would help move this country forward.
Real quick response so we can move on.
Drumming and dancing is actually used for partying and celebrating, but it's also used during demonstrations. That's just to tell you that nothing really on the face is bad. It is the intention of the usage. So riding a bike for health reasons is as good as riding it to protest, once you make it clear what you are using it for. So one does not disincentivize the other. So if somebody today chooses to use a bike to highlight the traffic situation, it's well and good. If another person uses it to highlight the need for us all to be healthy, it is still for a good cause. If another person uses it, especially because in his constituency, majority of the people ride motorbikes and they can no longer afford fuel in their motorbikes, and as a result of that, they are resorting to riding of bicycles not as a choice, but as a reason of the harsh economic conditions that they are faced with. It is still, right.
And so one thing is for
I
sure,
don't get the argument that because it can be used to promote health, because it can be used to also, highlight traffic situation, it cannot be used to highlight harsh economic conditions. He chose the right, way to protest, and I think the message has gone down well. It is left onto us, those of us who are actually feeling those harsh economic conditions, to demand better of our government.
Okay, all right, let's move on.
Yeah, oh no, I have to respond.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Or a little more than that. You see, the thing is, we're talking about a leader, okay, who is seeking to communicate something. Politics is all about perception. So when the people are getting the perception that the riding of a bicycle, okay, is attributable to poverty or to hardship, you are sending the wrong signal to people. That's what we're talking about. So it's not about what he chose. Of course, if the message has gone down...
There are people who walk in protest. We've seen like a one-man protest.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the walking is a bad thing.
No, no, that is a totally different discussion. Because what he's seeking to demonstrate is that fuel prices are high, so therefore I'm riding bicycle. Yeah. You are MP, okay? You're an MP of a place. Your business is not to ride bicycle to help fuel prices. Your business is to help make the cost of it better for your people. You live in Parliament, you work in Parliament, engage.
Okay.
Okay, with ideas that makes it cheaper, so your constituents can buy petrol and not ride bicycle.
Okay.
If you live in Tamale or any other part of this country, and you have to go to some place, and bicycle is your only alternative to use, and you are using bicycles, it's supposed to be bad? No. The idea is that let's try to make things better and stop doing the cheap politics.
But the NPP and the government, they've noticed what he's doing, right?
Well, it's a spectacle.
So you're watching.
It's a spectacle.
So you've seen him.
That is merely entertainment, but it doesn't contribute anything substantial to the problems we face.
This is entertainment to you.
Entertainment.
Okay, all right. Let's move on. Let's real quick, and I mean it in 1 minute. Let's talk about the U.S. midterm elections and what it means to us. You're a member of Parliament. Let me begin with you.
Yeah.
There are talks that we should also begin to look at midterm elections in our country.
Yeah, first of all, I think that I will just conclude on what we finished and I'll look at the midterms. I mean, what we started, and then I'll look at the midterms. Yes, in my 1 minute. You know, my brother is talking about the need for us as a member of Parliament to engender discussion and engage in ways of reducing the hardship. Now, what we are doing here, if we're not focused on trying to trivialize the riding of the bicycle, we would have been discussing the fact that he has highlighted an obvious fact, harsh economic conditions.
We fairly have done that.
And I understand, but he hasn't really come on board because he has sought to trivialize you know, the riding. But if he had focused on the fact that there's harsh economic conditions, and how the discussion would have then moved on to how do we ensure. So Ras is doing what an MP is supposed to do, engender discussions about how we can make things better by riding the bicycle.
30 seconds.
Now, midterms. I followed it to a point last night. It almost got me late coming here. I think that many people were projecting that the Democrats were going to have many of their seats in the Senate and in the House, and that
they've actually lost a number.
That brought about the thinking that there was a blue wave, you know, and I was very excited about the number of people who got involved, and according to even the statistics, it looks like it is the highest voter turnout that they are seeing in midterms elections this far, and that should tell you how eager and excited people were. And it's also as a result of some of the people who got involved, knocking doors, campaigning, and urging people to go out and vote. I think it is all in all very good for the democracy of the world, because somehow many countries look up to America, even with all its flaws in democracy. I think the excitement that this has generated is good for the country. And in the end, what we know now is that the Democrats have gotten the House, that's, and then
they're occupying the lower chamber of Congress.
And the Senate has gone the way of the Republicans. I mean, that is, for me, to be expected. Senate is more of a difficult place to lose when you are an incumbent. And I was actually watching Florida, especially because of Giuliani. I was very hopeful he was going to make it. Unfortunately, he didn't. But I think the numbers are encouraging. And for the Democrats, I mean, for the Republicans. Yes, and the women also. Yes. And also, interestingly, the first Muslim lady have been elected to the House in the history of America. I think that is big news. It's not just a Muslim, but a woman. I think
and I think around this time, with the conversations that have been going on.
I think that is also some big thing that have come out of the elections. But for the Republicans, I think they have to watch it. I mean, what has started may just sweep it out of office in 2020.
But Richard, we've been told that, I mean, you are familiar with this terrain. We've been told that the party that wins in the midterm ends up losing big time in the main election, the general election.
There's some truth to that, maybe a lot more truth than not to that. It's always usually because the president's party often loses in the midterm, and the incumbency advantage really kind of help win the next election. So most likely it also gives them the opportunity to sit up, so they correct things the next 2 years leading to.
So let me ask you a question. Why should we care? I mean, for Ghanaians such as yourself, maybe you can help us understand it. We are here in Ghana.
Yeah, we should care. But before that, though, let me just say one last thing.
You're going back to Ras.
No, just 1 second. You see, here's the thing. A V8 drive or riding MP, or MP that has a V8, parked it at home to ride a bicycle, is either doing two things. One, to ridicule people who ride bicycle, or two, to show off and say, see, I have V8 at home, but I'm riding bicycle.
Okay.
He doesn't teach any positive lesson, unless he's saying that.
I think that's your interpretation. And one thing is clear.
That's what we know.
You two will not agree, so let's move on.
That's what we know. So, but then, if he was using riding bicycle to teach a health lesson, then that is positive. Park your V8 at home and ride bicycle. That is the lesson. I want him to do it next week and make the lesson, let's ride bicycle because it's healthy. That's positive for the economy. That's positive for all of us. Now, the midterms, the Democrats, I thought they would have done much better than what they have done. More or less make some inroads in the Senate. I was very disappointed in Texas when Mr. Beto actually lost. I think it was about 3 points or so. He got 48 out of 151 for Ted Cruz. So that was a disappointment. At 42 seats and 52 for Republicans, the balance of power in the Senate actually goes to the Republicans. But then the House, which is a more contentious place, I'm happy Democrats have control of over it. 205, I think, is what they have. But I'm still looking forward in Georgia. The race between Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams is still out there, possibly to go for a second round. So I'm hoping that comes through, and then Democrats can get one more seats to add. And now we'll have a true balance of power. We have a Senate that is controlled by Republicans, and the House, which is more critical in terms of economic policy, falling to the Democrats. So there'll be some kind of responsibilities, and I think inevitably this will change the conduct of the president. He'll have to tone down. He can't continue to have his way all the time and be the kind of person he is. He has to moderate, else he's going to find it difficult.
So I asked you a question of
why should we care?
Yeah.
Well, we should care because we live in a global environment now. What America does affects us. We're here the last time they decided to beef up the economy, and our city was having to, suffer for that kind of decision. So we're interested to make sure that we are appropriately adjusting our things. And of course, our constitution is a hybrid of theirs and of Britain. So their democratic processes have implication for us that we're learning from that as well, embracing democracy as we ought to embrace. And I think altogether, in the interest of democracy, I think we ought to be interested. And I hope that here too we would continue to embrace democracy. Ours have been a very fast growing process for us, and I think we have ourselves to commend. And maybe the lessons we've been learning around the world is why our democracy is growing.
Mama, I think what is obvious is that the wind of change is blowing in the United States of America against the Trump government. And what, again, we should be excited about, especially lovers of democracy, is the fact that Mr. Trump will now be checked better, because many of his utterances and his posturing do not seem to, make some of us feel that democracy, especially in the United States of America, is safe. Alive, yeah. And it has led to divisions that, can lead to consequences that we may not all be excited about. In fact, recently there have been some shootings and some murders and some posting of bomb threats to some individuals, sending the signal that we are not safe. And these things, some have suggested, are linked to people who have been against Trump, who have said things against Trump. And if we are beginning to have an America where dissent is not tolerated, you can imagine the rippling effects on other countries. So I am happy that this will result in ensuring that Trump is checked better. And I think this is the time his negotiation skills will actually be put to test.
If he has one.
Yes, if he has one. Because to get, the government still running, he will need to be accommodating more, and he will also need to find a way of maneuvering his policies.
We'll see how it goes, but he hasn't stopped tweeting, by the way. But let's talk about IOCO. Something very interesting happening. The Eastern Regional Director of IOCO was suspended on Monday for saying what we're about to play to you. This is what he said. Here we go.
Before we can fight corruption effectively in Ghana, the ruling government should be ready first and foremost to prosecute their own. When the slightest incidence of corruption is raised against the ruling government, then they can also have the guts to prosecute the opposition. There should be the political will by the ruling government to fight it. They should be ready to resource the corruption fighting agencies.
Let me begin with you. What is wrong with what you've heard? Why should anybody be suspended for making?
As an outsider looking in and listening to what he's saying, outsider in relation to IOCO, I don't think there's anything. It's a general advice that he's giving to all of our governments, not this government, but all governments. So for me, I don't see anything wrong with it as a person, not of IOCO. But then the only thing I'm seeing, which is part of the comment that IOCO gave, is that it's unethical, with respect to their standards, which I am not very well educated on. So maybe they see something untoward. And my only issue with that is, as somebody again looking in, is IOCO, you have a mandate. So if there's corruption out there that you see, you don't wait for some government to tell you. Otherwise, you are not an institution worth your salt. If you are supposed to be investigating crime, investigate crime. When you see it, investigate it. You don't wait for somebody to say, go and investigate that one. Otherwise, we don't need you. When there's a crime, we'll call you to come investigate. So it reveals some mindset within our institutions that they are not truly proactive. They are not truly existing to do or discharge their mandates. Because if you say, if there is slightest allegation, in fact, I am expecting the slightest allegation will be raised by you if you see it. You'll be investigating that, because that's your set of work.
But do you appreciate the points?
That's what I'm saying. I appreciate it.
The content. Let's talk about what he said in that voice.
No, I'm saying that I appreciate. That's a good advice. And all of us, in fact, especially this president, has been committed to fighting corruption. So for me, I'm expecting, and most especially under this president, if you see corruption or you see acts resembling corruption, you should be proactive in investigating. Don't go and stand before people, and then be telling that when you are supposed to be doing that. So that for me is a problem. In fact, as we speak, the suspension, I think the noise have gone up so much about as though that he was actually sacked or fired. I think he was suspended, and the issue.
But we know how things go in when you're in public service. It starts like this,
no.
But essentially you've actually lost your job.
Okay, but the point is, it was said that he was suspended, and the issue referred for investigation consistent with their ethical standards. Okay, so that for me should not elicit the same level of outrage.
But considering how things have gone, So we're talking about precedents.
But we take every case, it's a special case. You can generalize that because some suspension led to firing based on the findings of investigation. We'll have to wait till the investigation in this case leads to that.
Do you actually believe that this will be investigated and they would communicate to us the the conclusion?
Yeah, maybe to your surprise, in fact, and to help us understand what I was saying, we cannot prejudge situations. In fact, his suspension has been reversed this morning. So he's no longer suspended.
Oh, so he's back at post?
Yes, on account of the investigation that was carried out.
Where's the communication?
Communication.
Yes, because the suspension was communicated. Yeah. So we've seen the.
Well, letter. I think Ioko will issue a letter to that. I don't know when.
So where's your source? Where's this coming from? Huh? Where is this coming from?
Well, I don't. The point should be that.
No. I want to appreciate where you're coming from. So I'm asking.
Yeah. I have my sources. I can't disclose. You're a journalist, and that's
no, I appreciate that. But I'm saying, what's the authority for this?
But I'm saying, if it's not true, we'll find out. But I'm saying, that this is why we don't have to. Prejudge situations. Because I've heard people before I land for. I've heard people calling on the president. He should fire him, fire the executive secretary, and all those things. We're the same people when the president steps in and do something. Will come back and say, "Oh, we must allow democracy to work." An institution has its own culture and standards. If they see any of their members go against that, they want to discipline. We should allow the institutions to work. And in this case, they have done their work. Refer the issue for investigation. Based on their conclusion, they have gone ahead to reverse it. If we had,
even though we haven't seen that communication, that statement. That
well, I should just say that I'm privileged to a source that gave me that information. But that is inevitably what we're going to learn here.
Have you? You're closer. You're in Parliament. You may have heard this.
I've heard it from the grapevine, but I've not seen anything to that effect. And I am pleased that you probed further to find out if it is verifiable information. Maybe it is the wish of some people, and those people are power brokers. So it is concluded that even though they wish for his reinstatement, it is as good as his reinstatement. I say so because I have actually seen Gabi Ochirodako post on social media that it was wrong for the gentleman to be suspended. And knowing what has happened, especially with his tweets and his post, I can, be forgiven to begin to imagine that some people have already concluded that if these people are uncomfortable, then it means he's reinstated. But the fact is, we have not seen any communication yet to that effect. What we know and have to deal with now is the fact that he is on suspension. And I think it is sad. CDD, have raised concern about that action by the Ioko boss. CPP, as a political party, have actually called for the removal of the Ioko boss, and I support that call. My party this morning also have issued a statement condemning what has happened. And as a member of the Association of Parliamentarians Against Corruption, I think that what happened, at Ioko is disgraceful, and it actually hurts the image of that institution. And somehow, I don't think I could have put it better than Vital Zazim of the Transparency International has done. He says that, it is a clear example of the fact that this government, have lost the fight against corruption. I think they
How do you conclude on that, based on an action taken by an independent institution?
I think they never even started that fight in the first place, not to even talk of losing that fight. Because why will a government that is committed to the fight against corruption be afraid to be reminded that it needs to deal with corruption within, assuming...
But to be fair, this was not an executive action, was it?
Why do we want to shut the executive out of it? The executive appointed the boss of Ioko.
No.
The executive appointed the board of Ioko.
Mamavi, you engaged me. Please engage them to correct that.
No.
The government has nothing to do with this.
Government
It's an institutional decision that was made. Please, let that be corrected, because we have people watching.
I'm not challenging that.
Okay.
I'm not
so then let's
challenging
focus on Ioko.
I'm not challenging
this
what
has nothing to do with government.
I'm only expanding it. I'm not challenging
well,
what
you don't have to expand
it. It's an institution, and I'm expanding it, which is also based on fact. And the fact is that the executive appointed the EOCO boss. The executive appointed the board.
So effectively what you're saying is that because the executive appointed the EOCO boss doesn't have a mind of his own.
Yes.
No, he does. But I'm saying that he works also to the, what do you call it, the glory of the executive. And we know because recently it happened at the CID when the person who was deputy CID boss told a complainant that their role was to make the government look good. Days after that, her superior was removed and she was made the boss. So if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck and swims like one, it's obviously one.
That's not true.
So I'm saying that these may be other, this may be state institutions. These may be institutions we expect to work independently. But if things around their actions suggest that they are not as independent as they are expected to be, it is not shameful for us to point it out in the hope that they will be reminded to act and work independently. So I'm saying that this particular, comment by the Eastern Region boss of EOCO and the result, the action that have been taken is a manifestation of how this government is unwilling to fight corruption. Look, what he said is not new. I recall during one of the Occupy Ghana, programs, Dr. Menzel Tabel said the same thing about how to win the fight against corruption and used the example of the political party ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe, where when they started demolitions, they started by demolishing their own party office. I recall he said for a government to win the fight against corruption, it needed to deal with its own people. So if you have the boss of EOCO repeating the same thing without even specific reference to the government in power, why will people acting on behalf of the government in power, in this case the EOCO boss, be jittery and take the action that he took? I think it is shameful. It ought to be reversed, and I support the cause that perhaps the EOCO boss himself, who has carried out this action, has demonstrated clearly that he does not have what it takes to occupy that position.
Just a quick reaction, and then I'm going to merge it. Because what does this, let me ask the question, then you can, what does this do to people who occupy such positions? Because we need them to be this vocal. We need them to speak up.
Yes, they have to speak up. You sit on this set and you are in charge. Okay? So how things run on this set, even though somebody appoints you to be here, they don't regulate what you're thinking right now to make the show go. That's what you were asking, my honorable. The fact that a government appoints him or a president appoints an individual doesn't micromanage his thinking every second. So the individual here, Mr. K.K. Amwa, made an independent decision subject to the ethics standards of EOCO. This has nothing. It doesn't look, it doesn't quack, it doesn't swim like a duck. Perhaps my honorable brother is telling us what they did when they were in office.
No, I told you what happened at CID.
No. I'm saying
that's what I
because this here, if Mamavi makes a decision at the instance on this show, it's her decision. So therefore, if you are telling us something from experience, maybe you should be a bit specific to say that.
Yes, yeah.
But no, specific to your government.
Mrs. Akufu.
But here is the thing that we all want institutions to be strong. So if an institution misbehaves, let us all uniformly condemn the behavior. But in fact, he makes the point that the man didn't even reference any government. He says government. He didn't say this government. So to what extent do you then move ahead to expand this to mean MPP or administration?
Yeah, but to what so why should he be punished the way that he was?
So that is why the decision has to be reversed, because it has nothing to do with government.
So who reversed the decision?
But what did they tell us? They said he was suspended pending an investigation. So the outcome of that investigation internally...
Oh, then that was real quick.
But of course. It's ethics. You look at it. I don't know how fast or how quick. In fact, if EOCO is not fast, then we're doomed because we want them to investigate crimes. So if they're not expeditious in investigating...
If they actually really investigated this, then we
Today
need them...
Today is Wednesday.
Today is Wednesday.
I don't think you need 48 hours to review anything.
Then we need them to be working at this rate. We would be better off if we were
that's what I'm saying. I want that. But the point is that if EOCO cannot investigate things within EOCO expeditiously, then we are doomed to expect them to investigate something without. So please, let us be careful in expanding this. It's unnecessary to expand it. Let's limit it to EOCO. That was where it happened. That's where it ended. And we all are happy that they are adhering to their own standards.
Okay. We are running out of time, but I wanted us to touch on something that I want to ask. Please, let's listen to the former dean of the Faculty of Law at GIMPA.
Parliament was supposed to play that role. Unfortunately, starting from the first parliament, which is the historical problem we had, starting from the first parliament which started in '93, there was an expectation that this is our president, this is our executive. Parliament's expectation was therefore to go in there and to promote the agenda of their executive. So you have parties in parliament seeing themselves as extension of the executive. I think that is where we got it wrong until today. If Parliament was to play its accountability role and responsibility as expected of Parliament, the Adenta footbridge would not be a problem. And the reason it wouldn't be a problem is that the Minister of Roads and Highways by now would have been in Parliament answering questions, and those question time in Parliament will not be perfunctory. They will be substantive, because somebody may pay a dear price for the failure to perform a ministerial function. So the structure of government, right from the base to the top macro, are designed in such a way to ensure that there are reciprocal checks. Unfortunately, those checks have not been working, and we've just had a situation where we've had strong and effective executives, but the rest have become extension of that executive, and that is not supposed to have been the design.
And that's a true reflection of what we have.
Well, to some extent, yes, I'll agree with him. But just a minute on, a reaction that I hope I am entitled to. I said that this government never started the fight against corruption in the first place, even though Mr. Vitus Azim seemed to think that they are, by this conduct, showing that they have lost the fight. And the example is in the happenings recently. Many other examples, but a recent
I thought you were clear.
A recent one will suffice. A recent one will suffice. You have a situation where everybody is worried about what is happening at Ghana Maritime Authority, but the government information minister comes to address the nation, and the focus is on how to remove a vice chancellor who is leading transformation at the KNUST, and not the Maritime Authority boss.
I thought the focus was resolving the issues at the KNUST.
No, the focus is on removing a vice chancellor. I have said it from day one. That
but
they
is that what he said?
They may have, yes, I mean, they said they will not tolerate any old member on the board. That is a subtle,
in the form of the Constitution.
They don't have that authority. They have the authority to remove their representative on the board, but they cannot subtly suggest to other institutions not to repeat the people they sent to the old board.
So you've rubbed in something
but because
else.
From the beginning, the agenda had been not to resolve the matter.
I don't have time.
Because we have to litigate this issue.
We won't be able to comment on Mr. Abochi. We'll have to shelve it for another time. Because what you've said, I'll have to give him the opportunity to do a quick reaction.
Then let me just wrap up on that. Now, the point I'm making is that from day one, I have said that there may have been issues at KNUST, but the focus has not been to resolve those issues. The focus from day one, and you can find it in the words of Samia Oku, the national organizer, and the youth organizer, have been to remove a vice chancellor and not to resolve the issues.
Minister.
Yes, the information minister during the press conference. Yes, he actually just gave the direction that, look, we are not going to accept any old person. I mean, on what basis will you say you won't accept old people if it is not because you think that the old people will include the vice chancellor? And that is just in furtherance of what Samia Oku have said, in furtherance of what the national youth organizer of the party have said, that they will sack the man. It is not about the issues at KNUST being resolved. Okay. But talking about funding, I think what is important also in the submission of the ECO boss was the need for funding to go to these anti-corruption agencies. It has become clear that what many governments, and I'm not just referring to this government, have resorted to doing is to increase the budgetary allocations, but reduce, actual, what do you call it, deliveries, disbursements to these institutions. And I think it is a cause to worry about. And the fact that governments must punish their own. That is why some of us in the NDC remain very proud of President John Dramani Mahama. He demonstrated it consistently. And if we had time, I would have listed the number of times he sanctioned his own people. And not just the opposition.
I'll give you the last say and it's a wrap.
You see, the truth of the matter is my honorable brother shouldn't have gone to discuss this issue because the KNUST issue is a very touchy issue. They've sought to make the point stick that it is an attempt to remove a VC. Look at a VC whose position or council's position that this government ministers supported to do one thing or the other. But when in the implementation of a council decision, things went bad. We couldn't have been supporting the same vice chancellor and then suddenly midstream go against him, when in fact there is no prediction beforehand that he is going to mess up the implementation of an idea all of us agree. You understand? So that idea, logically speaking, okay, deductively speaking, my brother knows that cannot hold because the premise of the argument is wrong, the conclusion cannot be right. So you cannot say that. It exposes you, not the government you're trying to accuse. The other thing to do with the minister addressing issue to do with, KNUST as opposed to Ghana Maritime. The issue is being investigated. So you want him to preempt?
Who is investigating the maritime issue?
Well, the minister has referred it to the board to investigate.
The board that is part of the whole problem.
Excuse me. But you see, it is not for you and I or for me to,
I get it.
So the point...
But you see why people open their eyes wide when you say the board is investigating?
But you see, Mamavi, let me tell you, the minister is not supposed to come there and preempt the findings of the board, whether you trust it or not. You understand? In fact, what my brother is saying and is happy trying to say that, the board, that's the same thing they want to replicate in KNUST. They want the old board. No, please, Mamavi, please. This is very instructive. He wants the old board to sit and adjudicate or investigate this issue that is going on in KNUST. But then he complained. Of course, if you want the old board to be there, the vice chancellor is part of the old board.
Okay.
No, they will.
Thank you for your time. The local KNUST branch of UTAC will be having a press briefing today. So we'll see the issues that come out from there. The response, whether they are changing their members on the council or not.
Were those who were not very pleasant to my friend Kojo? Or no, it was it Tewu?
I have no idea. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. And did you write? I still need a response.
Well, I didn't, but and the RAS didn't ask for all of us to write, but I didn't. But I support the decision.
It's interesting how I can't get yes or no.
I said I did
because he can't do it, and he won't do it.
But I support what
he doesn't buy into the cheap politics Raz is doing.
He didn't ask for us to help.
Even if he did, you won't buy
beyond
highlighting
the harsh economic conditions.
Thank you very much.
We are helping him to highlight the harsh economic conditions.
I think it's been interesting.
The economy was worse under you. That we know.
Let's jump straight into our agenda this morning. Let's do agenda. Okay, stay with us. We'll come back with agenda.